This is my first time filming with this setup, so lighting may be a little bit wonky and positioning may not be as readily available as I'd like it to be. I'm going to be talking about the Rogue Flow Z13. I've seen a lot of videos where people are talking about the cat's meow of how it's wonderful and it's going to be competitive to an iPad. And it's not really competitive to an iPad because it can do things that an iPad can't. Namely, run the software I've already paid good money to own, use. I'm sorry, you can't purchase software and own it. You can only license it. So you can't really own it. I guess if you can't really own it, you can't really steal it either, but those are philosophy questions for somebody else. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take you down the path of trying to show you that you need to turn off OneDrive. That was the first real problem I had with this computer. The specs on this thing are wonderful. 16 core, 32 thread. In terms of core count and thread count, it puts me in mind of the 5950s. Of course, these being the newer generations. It's wonderful. It's actually a great processing system. But I noticed even as fast as this system was, having OneDrive on cripples everything. OneDrive, unlike Apple Cloud and Google Drive, for some reason OneDrive is just the bane of my existence. I may be the only person that has problems with OneDrive, but the OneDrive, when it's functional and turned on, it slows down the start time of most of the programs that I use, and it interferes with the operation of those programs when in use. So the first thing I do is I go through and I turn off all things related to OneDrive. And to give you a background idea of what I deal with, other than, for instance, the occasional YouTube video, I produce music for my own fun and enjoyment and to sell other people when they need something for a personal project. I do computer programming and develop software related to business use, so I don't always get to do the creative thing. And trying to find a good computer that fits into that mold of what can be everything to everyone, it's really difficult. When Apple introduced their M1 processors, I waited to see how long it took for companies to develop their software for their Apple ARM architecture. Now, something that Apple did that had some hits and misses, they developed their own emulation layer that allowed x86 coded programs to run on Apple M1. And in the arts and crafts type community, the people who do the content creation, there was a lot of success. There were some hiccups along the way, to be sure, but for the most part, everything worked pretty good. Now, Windows, they've introduced their ARM, and for the creative content people on this planet, it's not been going as well for them as it did for Apple. So I'm looking at a Asus Rogue Flow Z13, and this thing's got 64 gigabytes of memory, 1 terabyte hard drive, which the user can increase to 2 terabytes because the hard drive is a 2230. Out of the largest you can get currently is 2 terabytes, and that's a pretty good amount to go with. But where I do music production, I just did a test on this system to kind of get an idea of how much do I really need for a system, and to get me to the threshold between my software libraries and my instrument libraries, I'm right at 2 terabytes. So 2 terabytes is still technically too small if I want to carry everything along with me. But I did find out that there is something on this that I can do, and people always discount these things, but I'm going to put this out. This is a micro SD. Here's 2 terabytes of storage, and this is how I currently carry around my, look at me, I'm blind as a bat. And this is how I carry around nearly 1.5 terabytes of storage for the music libraries. The drawback on that is it's excruciatingly slow in comparison to if I wanted to plug in by way of Thunderbolt an external hard drive. But the whole purpose of me going this route is I wanted something that was all inclusive. My current setup is a MacBook Pro for most of my major production. And you know the MacBook curse, you can't upgrade the storage without spending big bucks and sending your computer off, or you pay for all that up front through the insidious Apple tax. They could create the MacBook, there's enough space inside that thing that they could make the SSD swappable. If they want to tie the memory to the chip, I'm kind of okay with it, but I'm kind of annoyed that I can't change out the SSD at any time or the hard drive at any time. So this is a step up on the MacBook Pro. Now, if I want to take something on the go with me, I can take that, but it's a full-size 16-inch MacBook Pro, and it's a little bit of a hog to carry around, and not a terrible hog, but it's its point that it's difficult. But if I'm on the go, I also have to carry on with my iPad Pro. iPad Pro is a nice device. It's a very fun device. It's effective at what it does. But one of the downsides to the iPad is the iPad, even though it has the exact same internals as a MacBook Pro, it can't run MacBook software. And that's a neat little trick of the Apple community, the Apple business model. The iPad Pro is technically just an overpriced toy. I have yet to find any benefit from using the iPad Pro versus the iPad, except maybe the screen looks better. Sound does a little bit better. But there's no meat and potatoes changes that are so relevant that it makes it worth $2,000 to have one of these if you spec it out all the way. So when you look at the lowest end MacBook Pro 14-inch and you increase your memory to 32 gigabytes and then you purchase the iPad to carry it, you end up with a machine setup that's about $5,300. And after taxes, I think it pushed a little bit higher than that, but after taxes, the 64 gigabyte Asus ROG Flow Z hits you at the $2,700 mark, a little bit under, but thereabouts. With this video that you're watching, I have edited on this particular machine, and except for the OneDrive issue and another issue, which I'll try to show in either this video or another, it sure does like to drop the sound. The sound card absolutely goes crazy and haywire, and it makes a god-awful racket when you try to play something. So there's something going on with that, and I don't know if that's necessarily Windows 11, the driver for the audio interface, which it does it with the internal card, so it also does it on the internal card as well. Or it could be hardware related. So I don't know where it's coming from, but there's definitely an issue there that I can't get around. So what do I like about this? I like the fact that you can pick it up and walk off with it. If you've seen any of the other videos, you've seen where they detach the screen from the system. I mean, I've got it closed up right now, and you're probably wondering, why is there a red pin sticking in the back? Well, I've got this laid up against something, and I want to get more air behind it. But you can grab this thing and tear the keyboard right off of it. The keyboard is probably my number one pet peeve. I don't really like the keyboard. It's too much like the Magic Keyboard. The Magic Keyboard, for all the money that you spend on it, they're horrible. This one on this iPad is from ESR, and it is a little bit more solid, and it's tough. ESR, kudos. But this is a non-powered keyboard, so it gets all of its power from these pins in the center of the keyboard. And it has its own hiccups in terms of whether you can type with the keyboard detached and separated. To do that, you'd probably have to get a Bluetooth keyboard and mouse setup to work with it like this. Now, I currently have this set up to function with a dock at the side and two monitors, and it does it with no problems. Like I said, this thing is a beast. It's power hungry. It does the job. and you can get rid of 2 Apple pieces of hardware and deal with just one. So that is where the shining beacon of hope is they're finally getting Windows systems to do halfway decent. Now for content creators, people want to say, oh, I can't get Windows because I don't have my Final Cut Pro. Well, don't worry about that, because DaVinci Resolve is not $300 for the average user. DaVinci Resolve is absolutely free, and as you can see in this video, I'm editing just fine with it. Video editing has come a long way, and well, free video editing for Windows is actually downright excellent, and DaVinci Resolve is providing it. You don't need Adobe Premiere. You don't need to sign up for a subscription through that. There's a lot I could say about this, and one of the things that I loaded onto this system was Cubase, and I ran Cubase through Cubase's own built-in ASIO driver, and it worked in the box. I did not necessarily have to have a USB audio interface, which is very common for any Windows system. You almost always, even with those outrageously priced Dell XPSs, you still have to have an external sound card, because Dell just can't work in the box. So Asus is coming a long way. Asus is really knocking this out of the park. Let me open this up and show this. That way you can see what. Now this screen, if it's probably catching light reflections, but this screen, I'll put it up against any iPad screen. It's a 2.5, maybe a little bit better than 2.5, but it's right at a 2.5K screen, whereas I think the current MacBooks are 3K screens. So MacBook's got a little bit of upper hand on it, but the iPad does not. It's a 2.5 screen. Now, I like using the iPad for stuff that's irrelevant. It's a great reader, but now I have a reader. I'm going to disconnect this and show you. I can pick this up and I can use it. I've got the auto crop turned off because I was using it a certain way, but I can read books. It's making a liar of me right now because I don't have my glasses on. Kindle reader. Well, you know what? You take this thing out and you're trying to do something with the video camera, and suddenly it doesn't want to work and play nice. So, Kindle reading app, Life of Columbus. Of course, it figures. Pen support suddenly doesn't want to work. There we go. Pen, just like an iPad. Now, I don't have auto, like I said, I don't have auto rotate turned on. But as you can see, I can read my books just like I can with an iPad. I can take this, turn this out. Microsoft OneNote works exactly like GoodNotes does, and you don't, because you have to buy note-taking software, at least with Windows. It does the exact same thing. God, I wish Microsoft would fix some of their stuff. Okay, I've added a page, it's untitled, and I do prefer using lines. Test page 2. This is not too bad. As you can see, it draws just fine. This is an Asus pen. The Asus pen does not come with it. You have to pay for it. That's 30 extra bucks. But if you want the Apple Pro pencil, I think that's 140. So give and take. Now, what do I like about the writing on this? I really don't like it. I can take the notes, and I think I do just fine with it. but the feel of it is, it feels like you're writing on a piece of plastic. If you're okay with a dry erase board with a fairly decent pencil, you're going to be fine with this. If you like writing on paper, you're going to have a few hiccups, but it can be done, and it works. You can draw in it up on the side, write my name. This goes back to one of my problems. I do like to view the lines. Rule lines. See, you can turn the rule lines on. I don't know if the camera's picking up on it, but once you have lines, you can keep your kind of handwriting a little bit better, which I can't. I'm such a slob at writing, I might as well be a doctor. But great software product, great working product. You can work with a lot of things with your pen. It seems to work just fine with most of the software I've tried so far, but I would encourage people that if they're even thinking about something like this, you're going to have to figure out a few things, and this is where I've had to struggle with it, because not everything is perfectly seamless. Not every software program that you use is perfectly seamless, but I do like the fact that I can work. Just gonna shut it off. But I like the fact that I can take this work with me anywhere I go, and I can take it in the form of a tablet. I can make notes in business meetings. I can do everything that I can do with an iPad, except I've got the raw power to run, well, basically my programming software. I deal with x86 code, and that's one of the things I can't get away from. You say, oh, well, I can do x86 code on a M1 Mac. I can too. I have Parallels, and whenever you're doing something with Parallels installed on your system, if you do something that Parallels thinks is Windows centric, it just confiscates everything you're doing and says, let's start doing this in Windows. And that's annoying. It's a headache that I hate, but you got to deal with it. Would I recommend the Rogue Z to anybody? It can play games. It is powerful enough to play games, edit video, do music. I haven't found anything that makes this thing stutter yet. Everybody will tell you about the battery life. What they won't tell you is how bad it really is. If you're doing anything that is intensive, and by intensive, I'm talking about gaming or video editing, it's going to draw down the battery fast. When it comes to that level of power, it can't compete with the M1 or any M series chip. It's not even close. The M1 iPad, but then again, I can't use it for everything that I can use a full-blown computer for. It'll have at least 3/4 of a day's worth of work in it before I have to plug it in. But that really is something you need to talk about, because you can't do the same thing on an iPad that you can do on a Mac without paying extra money for it. You've already bought Logic Pro for music and Final Cut Pro for video editing, but you can't use it on this. You have to rent it for $5 and $10 a month, respectively. Your prices may vary if you have points or something, but it's a consistent rental. I don't like rental agreements. I don't like subscription agreements. It's one of the reasons I've given up Pro Tools. I could give a crap less if I ever touch Pro Tools again. I don't need it. I can do everything I want to musically with Reaper or Cubase and Bitwig Studio. I've started using that. It's a little bit quirky and fun, but I like tinkering. If you can't tell, I am a tinker person. Going back to the Rogue Flow Z, it does everything. Except for the hiccups with the sound server, the sound generation. Even the external speakers are the internal speakers are reasonably okay. I bought one of their Vivo books, and oh dear God, was the sound atrocious. I can't believe they even let that out of their building. A speaker for this thing and a speaker for the Vivo book, I can't imagine there's $1 difference in build price. But for some reason, they let garbage like that out the door. Does it compare to a MacBook on sound? It's close, but no. Close, but no. But I do like it well enough, because I'm never going to edit a song and try to mix it for sound levels in this and for mix accuracy. But what I want to be able to do with any system is I want to be able to hear it so that I can song arrangement, basic song arrangement. If you're going to be on the go, you don't want to cram a bunch of hardware into a case and try to do some work, you want to just basically pull out the computer and work with the computer alone. So that's probably one of this so far is better than Dell. The Dell XPS couldn't handle stuff on its own. You had to download something extra called ASIO for All wrapper. It's not an actual driver. It's just a wrapper. It wraps your basic Realtek audio device drivers into something so that it can be used. But it's got its quirks too, and sometimes it's not all that grand either. So one of the things that Windows has done with their ARM implementation is they have promised that they're finally, after 40 years, going to fix the sound problem with Windows computers. I don't see it happening, just to be honest with you. Windows had what they called the MMS drivers, multimedia sound system drivers. They were okay for playing a game, not for music production. Then they come out with the WDM drivers, which were okay for video game playback, but not necessarily for music production. And then Steinberg got tired of waiting, and Steinberg developed their own ASIO driver, and all the hardware companies jumped on it, and all the hardware companies have to create their own individual ASIO driver for their piece of hardware. Windows, being business-centric rather than entertainment-centric, said, screw you guys, y'all just build whatever you want to, and it's a driver that you can add in as a driver. Years ago, Apple adopted the philosophy that Apple was going to create the sound system within its own system, and every device has to use that system. And that's why when it comes to sound creation, editing, any sound work, that's why Mac is superior. And Windows can do it, but there are headaches that go along with Windows doing it. So am I at that point where I have to make the trade-off? I am. I have to be able to try to have it all in one system. And because Apple is not x86, I can't do the programming for my work without the hassle. There's hassles either way, but you're paying premium for Apple products, and you're paying premium for the Asus ROG Flow. But like I said, you can get rid of 2 Apple products for 1 Asus ROG Flow, and that's not a bad thing. So as we look at some of these videos and I go through some of the hiccups that I've had, I'll show some things. I thought about installing Linux on this and just being done with Windows, because trust me, there are hiccups with Windows that you just have to deal with. So I've been Big T. Thanks for watching this, and if you have any questions, leave them at the bottom. Hit like and subscribe, and I'll try to get some more videos out on this. Don't know if I'm going to keep this yet. I mean, I really like it. I really do. But if I had to say one thing that's the big fat negative, it really is the keyboard. Is there room for improvement on this thing? You bet. For some reason, the only SSD card you can get with this thing is a 2230, and that's the smallest of the cards. And I wish they would expand out the space so that you put a true 2280 in there and put a 4 terabyte hard drive in there. That would be the fantasy. But even if they can't go 2280 because their engineers aren't smart enough to develop the space for it, it wouldn't hurt my feelings if they went from the 2230 and made enough space for a 2242. I think it's 2242 or 2248. If they could put the 2242 in here, that would be awesome, because at least one company, Oyen, has a 4 terabyte SSD. That would get me a device that is carry around, use, facilitate everything without having to carry extra dongles, extra external hard drives, or even having the micro SD in place. But the fact is, as it stands, I can use it as is, and I'm happy as a clam. Thanks for watching, and I'll try to get back more as I do more experiments with it. Thanks a bunch.